I must say, this is an amazing, amazing event. To come in and see that live band playing. I have never attended a lunch that had a live band on stage. I was like, I'm in the right place. And the Spanx presentation was out of this world. It was amazing. And I'm very excited about my gift certificate. Thank you. And man, I hope you're excited as well. Thank you for that kind introduction. I was telling her earlier that when I was at Howard University, I wrote her a fan letter because her career has been so amazing, and she took the time to write me back. So all these years later, I'm really just pleased and honored to have her introduce me here today. So thank you again. To the Atlanta Women's Foundation, thank you so much for inviting me here to speak to such an esteemed group of women and men. It's really an honor to speak to an organization that understands that lasting change can only be created by empowering women and girls to realize their full potential. The work of the Atlanta Women's Foundation does a true example of building a village to change the world. You know, I believe that the village consists of the microcosm and the microcosm, the local and the global. The microcosm may be the pregnant teen girl in Atlanta who graduates from high school and doesn't have a repeat pregnancy because she is part of a mentoring program. The macrocosm may be groups of women in developing countries who, because of a small loan, are able to start businesses and send their children to school and properly feed their families. The village is Atlanta, the village is the world. Working in this worldwide village is what feeds my soul. Working to empower and educate girls fuels my passion. Creating safe places for women, advocating for women's rights, building strong women leaders. This mission is so critical to the well-being of our world, our country, the state of Georgia, and of course Atlanta. We all know that when you educate a boy, you educate a person. When you educate a girl, you educate a community. When you uplift a girl child or a woman, we uplift her entire household, her village, her city, her town, indeed the world. My book, If It Takes a Village, How I Found Meaning Through a Life of Service, and 100 plus ways to, was published this past spring. Its publication was a result of a journey that began in my childhood and really does continue to this day, and God willing, until the day I die. I really wanted to share the joy of giving and serving with everyone who would listen to my story. I want everyone to know that we are all capable of giving back, regardless of how much time we have or how little money we perceive ourselves to have. Now, I've known this all of my life because I'm a daughter of a mama who raised a ruckus. She raised a ruckus all over Berkeley, California. She rallied, she picketed, and she was even arrested for her beliefs. I'm a daughter of a mother who's still raising a ruckus right now. She is, for poverty relief and social justice, and she really cares deeply right now for the new American homeless, folks who are working each and every day but still not able to pay the bills at the end of the day. So out of the womb, I did not have a choice but to be a global citizen and to do my part to make this world a better place for someone else, for all of us. Advocacy was instilled in me at birth. I wrote the book for those who didn't grow up with a mother like mine, who really care but don't know how to help, who feel they don't have the time or the money or the energy, no matter how much empathy they have. I wrote the book because, to quote Dr. Martin Luther King in a speech he gave at Riverside in 1967, we are now faced with the fact, my friends, that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. Procrastination is still the thief of time. Life often leaves us standing bare, naked, and dejected with a lost opportunity. The tide in the affairs of men does not remain in flood, it ebbs. I wrote the book because the global village has been severely damaged by the ravages of poverty, malnutrition, and disease, and the village's infrastructure has been weakened by greed, apathy, hopelessness, and sometimes cynicism. I wrote the book because the words that reverberate within my soul. The best and the blessed of us must take care of the rest of us. To whom much is given, much is required. If I get there before you do, I am obligated to bore a hole and pull you through. These sayings all imply that we must work together and that we are responsible for the upkeep, the maintenance, and the future growth of the village. The people in this room today represent the best and the blessed of us. I know that you are doing with your lives what I try to do with mine. You are dedicating yourselves to uplifting the lives of the residents of your community, and in so, indeed, uplifting our country and our world. Your business leaders, corporate executives, philanthropists, women and men of influence and import who already give back. And yet, as the name of this annual luncheon implies, the numbers of girls and women who need our help are too big to ignore. So the fierce urgency of now may require us to seek out more ways to strengthen and persevere the village. We may have to dig much deeper and give much more. But as Winston Churchill said, we make a living by what we get. We make a life by how we give. As I contemplated the special focus and purpose of the Atlanta Women's Foundation, I decided I wanted to share 3 very special focuses of my book today, and they're mentoring, giving circles, and raising charitable children. Mentoring came into my life in a very informal way. I attended Howard University in Washington, D.C., and like many universities, Howard is physically located in a low-income neighborhood plagued by poverty, crime, and low expectations. And it was during my years at Howard that I met a little girl who I mentored for 3 years. I talk about Jasmine, as I call her in my book, in the first chapter. And that was how, when I first learned how a little time can go to impact the life of someone else. Since all my college girlfriends also got involved with her life, the African proverb, "It takes a village to raise a child," took on special meaning, and I began to recognize the power of mentoring. Years later, I founded an organization called StyleWorks, whose purpose is to reach out to women who enter the workforce for the first time. StyleWorks' role was to provide beauty and grooming services so that their outer appearance would give them inner confidence during the interview process. What we realized, though, is that it's hard to train someone who has no work experience on workplace protocol. So we created a mentoring program that assigned each StyleWorks client a female business professional to help her navigate the new environment they found themselves in. All people will model the behavior around them. Adults do it more consciously, but children, they're sponges, and they soak up care, love, and attention the same way they soak up disdain, abuse, or neglect. Children are malleable, pliable, and can be molded into happy, confident achievers or sad, angry underachievers with low expectations for themselves, all because of behaviors they model, all because of the adults that have the biggest impacts in their lives. It's a huge responsibility to be an adult accountable for a child whose behavior will lead them towards a happy, confident, successful life, especially when that child is not your own. But it's a responsibility that we must not shirk. It's a huge responsibility to make ourselves accountable for a girl child when the stakes are so high, when we know that ultimately she must take her place and hold up half the sky. But it's a responsibility that we must not shirk. There are some wonderful organizations that exist to fill the dire need for adults to step up to the challenge of mentoring. Mentor is a 20-year-old organization that matches mentors with the children that need them. Their mission is to help children find and support and guidance they need to live productive and meaningful lives. The sad reality, as Mentor points out, is that there are only 3 million mentors for the 18 million children who need them. Because, and here are some more statistics, too big to ignore, 1/3 of all Black children in the U.S. live in poverty. The leading cause of death for young Black women, ages 25 to 34, HIV/AIDS. 58% of fourth graders, Black fourth graders, are functionally illiterate. And every day, 1,000 Black children are arrested. And coincidentally, the National Peers Mentoring Movement is based right here in Atlanta. The goal of National Peers Mentoring Movement is to close the gap between the relatively few Black mentors and the millions of children who need them. That is a great example of understanding that it takes a village and building one. And many celebrities and ordinary people have answered Susan's call to help build this new village. Mentoring can take on many forms. It can be one-on-one, you can mentor in a group setting, or even by email in certain situations. However, when you choose to mentor, and whomever you choose to mentor, this is an urgent call to action, and you are needed. As Dr. King also said, we are confronted with the fierce urgency of now, and there is such thing as being too late. You know, in my book, I also talk about how a cause can find you. Well, the program I started in Brooklyn, Journey for Change, Empowering Youth Through Global Service, is such a cause. On a Christmas trip to South Africa in 2007, I visited a shantytown called Diepsloot, and I met a grandmother who had survived her own children's death from HIV/AIDS and was raising her own grandchildren. Following a pointed question from her about whether I would do something to help the situation, I decided to do just that, to help these brave women improve their lives, and also because I was called to act. And then I had an idea. What if I brought the youth that I worked with in Brooklyn to volunteer in South Africa for 4 main reasons? 1, to introduce kids who had never left New York to travel. I believe that travel opens up your mind. To introduce kids who are on the receiving end of aid to the giving end of service. To allow kids in the U.S. to understand the inherent blessings they have, even in the inner city, compared to third world poverty, and to take advantage of those blessings. And 4, to create global citizens concerned with their own communities and the world around them. And so Journey for Change, Empowering Youth Through Global Service was born. Jasmine Figueroa was one of 30 children chosen for the first Journey for Change trip to South Africa in 2008. In many ways, she was an unlikely choice. All the children came from family backgrounds that would classify them as at risk, but Jasmine's circumstances were extreme. She'd been removed from drug-addicted parents, their custody 3 times. She was 15 in the 8th grade. She'd been abused and taken advantage of by men and boys, and she has 2 sisters in gangs. Yet she found some solace in the Salvation Army and being a part of Journey for Change. This year, 5 of the 30 kids were chosen to go on a mission trip to Ghana to take part in rescuing child slaves from the infamous Lake Volta in Ghana. The children had to write essays to be considered for this trip, and Jasmine's writing skills and spelling left much to be desired. To be honest, I didn't have much faith that Jasmine could overcome the obstacles and the burdens that were her life. I felt she was hanging on by a thread, and any moment could be lost. But what Jasmine's essay lacked in grammar and spelling was made up in a passionate desire to understand why children would be kept as slaves and figure out how to stop it. In March, we landed in Ketekwashe, Ghana, with the Touch of Life Foundation for a 10-day trip. The Journey for Change ambassadors were there to meet and partner with former child slaves and take part in rescue missions. Child slaves in Ghana are sold by their parents for as little as $20 and forced to fish on Lake Volta for 18 hours a day. Jasmine and her fellow ambassadors were able to witness firsthand what the life of a child slave is like and to speak to the children and their masters. Each day, they would go out onto the lake to attempt to convince the masters to release a child. Negotiations to get child slaves released can take weeks, even months. There are Touch of Life partners on the ground whose job is to meet with elders to try to get a release. One day, the Journey for Change ambassadors were witnessing one of these long, drawn-out negotiations. Suddenly, Jasmine and Benjamin asked if they could speak directly to the elders to see if they could get a child released. Well, after their impassioned plea, they got 2 children released. The video that you're about to see tells the story of our mission trip and the rescue in the words of these young advocates from Brooklyn, New York, including Jasmine.